How are you going today, everybody? Hope you're excited to be at the end of the semester, ready to sit down and take an exam in a setting that you've never really had before, and feeling prepared and confident that you've been well demonstrated how to get through this particular course, and confident that you can go out and tackle all of the transportation problems of the world and really get stuck into the nitty-gritty of council or private sector or state government transport authority work. This is our revision lecture, or our revision class. I don't have a lecture topic, but what I want to do is show you what materials are available in week 12. I want to talk to you a bit about how the exam is going to work, and also we'll go through some of the focus questions also that are in week 12. So let's jump straight in. So in this topic, week 12 topic on Moodle, you can see that there are a couple of guide documents and some exam notes. So hopefully now you will have seen the email that I sent out a few days ago talking about the exam study guide. I'm just going to open that up quickly. So the exam study guide breaks down the key focus questions that you can narrow your efforts down to while revising for the exam. So these are just a subset of the lecture questions and tutorial questions that we had as part of our learning material through the semester. And by focusing on these questions, you will be able to answer every exam question. So as I explained in previous weeks, what I've done is I've taken the lecture material and I've comprised key questions from that. Then I've taken those key questions and I've comprised this list. About half of the questions make it into this list. And then I've taken these questions, and a subset of these questions is the exam, almost verbatim. Oh, Beck can't hear anything. Can anyone else hear anything? I've got, I think I've got audio coming through. I had audio coming through last night when I was on different. Check to see, can I see my audio stream in my YouTube health, live stream settings? What if I check in here? If I jump in here. Yeah, okay. No, alright, so other people can hear. Beck, maybe try refreshing the page, and that's not going to help her because I can't say it. Okay, so hopefully those issues will get sorted out very soon. But as I was saying, the key questions form the basis for the exam. So if I were you and I wanted to be thoroughly prepared for this exam coming up, I would just go through each one of these questions and find where to get the answers in the lecture material, and also from that maybe even write down a set of answers that you're comfortable with. Hang on, sorry, I'm expecting someone to arrive today. I think I might have just heard a knock on the door. One sec. No one's at the door. It's just the neighbours getting a delivery of crushed rock, it looks like. Right, where was I? So the exam is going to be fully open book. And we're doing that partly for practical reasons. Like I can't be there looking over your shoulder and controlling how much information you have at hand. So with that in mind, the exam contains no formula sheets. There's no reference material attached to the exam. There's just 40 questions, and they've all got varying amounts of of weight. The questions are not of equal weight. And you're able to look at anything through the semester. You're able to look at any of the lecture material, any of the tutorials and answers, and that means if you go through this list and you prepare yourself a set of answers to all of these questions, then you'll be able to refer to that document that you've prepared as well. So it'll make the exam very much not a stressful thing for you to do. There's a couple of numerical questions which will have different numbers, so you'll have to do those calculations live. And I've modified the wording very slightly for the questions, but I don't want to make this any harder than it has to be. I think that we've had a rough enough time this semester as a group with all of the differences in delivery from what we're usually expecting. And so with that in mind, I don't think this is a particularly difficult subject. Let's not make it any more difficult than it has to be. Let's make sure that you guys know exactly what you've got to do, and if you're able to do it, you're going to find yourself getting very high marks for the subject. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the other materials that are in this week 12 section on Moodle. So I've got a few notes that explain how the exam works. So as you might have either been contacted from the exam office or seen the email that I sent out the other day, or seen the note here, or seen the note up here as well, the exam is going to be on Tuesday the 16th. So that's Tuesday the 16th here of June, but we're giving you a 48-hour window. This is for all of your subjects. You've got a 48-hour window, so it's the 16th or the 17th that you'll have to complete the exam. Now it's a 3-hour duration. That's in the course description. It's a standard 3-hour duration, but what we're doing is we're giving you 6 hours in which to spend 3 hours on the exam, if that makes sense. So let's say you've got you download the exam at 1 o'clock and you spend an hour writing on the exam, and then your parents pop by for a surprise visit. So you sit and you have a coffee with them for an hour, and then you go back to the exam. You do another hour on the exam, and then maybe you've got to take your cat to the vet, so you spend 2 hours at the vet, and then you come back and you do your last hour of the exam. That's 3 hours over a 6-hour period, and it gives you room for life stuff to happen. It gives you room for you to answer emergency phone calls, or to put the dishes out, or set up a load of laundry, whatever you've got to do. So that's going to be the format. So what we're encouraging you to do is download and then re-upload the exam within the window of 6 hours. So if you go to there's a section, I'll show you from this window, it's probably easy to navigate. So right at the bottom of the course, week 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, we've got exam 2020. Now in this area we've got some restricted items. So this is the exam document here. You can see it's on Moodle, but it's not going to be available unless it is the 16th of June at midnight, so at the very start of the day, or the 17th of June at 11:55. So you've got a full, not quite 48 hours, you've got 47 hours and 55 minutes, at which time this exam is visible. What I want you to do is basically just write your answers underneath the questions in the exam. So it's a Word document for a reason. You can then just edit the Word document, write your answers under there. I've got all the exam questions are in black, and I've given you a little stub of an answer in like dark red. That'll help me when I'm reading it to identify what's answer and what's question. And then when you're finished, you just save the document and you can upload it to this link. Now this link will become available from midnight. If I go into the settings for the link, it'll be available from midnight on the 16th, and it will be available until, I'm giving you a little bit of leeway, 1 hour into the 18th. So until 1 a.m. on the 18th, if for whatever reason your house catches fire or something and you need an extra hour to get that through. So yep, you can just upload one document to that. Has to be a Word document, so you're going to be just uploading that single thing, and then I'll get on to marking that pretty quickly. The good thing is, because I'm expecting everyone to be really well prepared and to have lots of correct answers, it's very easy for me to mark an exam that is mostly correct. It takes a lot more time if people are half right or not right altogether. So hopefully I'll be able to get you your grade pretty quickly, because I'm expecting lots of well-prepared and high-scoring students in this exam. The answers document's not going to be available for you at any point. That's just there for future moderators to be able to find in the course, and it's helpful for me just to show you a bit more of my method. I like to make sure I write out answers to all of the questions before finalizing the exam, so that I make sure that all of the relevant information that's necessary to answer the question is there, and that the question is not confusing. I've also had Hayden check over this exam. So Hayden's made a few grammar changes and spelling corrections. So we're pretty confident that that's a a well-structured exam for you guys. What else can we talk about? So there are some existing exams. There are some past exams here: 2016 exam, 2015 exam, 2013. What I want to point out to you is that we've made a lot of changes in this course compared to previous years. So if I go into the 2016 example, we'll see that there are a lot of questions. So this is reasonable. We've got a sort of density question that's just based on the number of vehicles, but there's all of this extra information if we're looking at this sort of Poisson distribution, the probability of getting a gap longer than 4 seconds. I don't want you to have to do that kind of calculation. So these past exams, they're going to have a lot of stuff that is not particularly relevant to us. If you want to know what's going to be relevant and what you need to prepare for, this is the document to use. The exam study focus questions. You will not have any surprises whatsoever if you have practiced with these study questions. Please let me know in the chat if you've got any questions right now, anything that you're unsure about or you'd like me to clarify, and yeah, I'll try to do my best to make that clear for you. Might also go through with you while we're all together, go through some guidance documents that that we've been given for how students are encouraged to sit the exam. So these are a couple of guidance tips that were published by the exam office. So I haven't read these ahead of time, but we'll go through them together and we'll just sort of have a bit of a discussion. Plan ahead. I mean, yeah, you've got a window. You've got a 48-hour window, not just a 24-hour window for you to complete your exam. Try and plan ahead as to when you're going to do that. Book that in your calendar. Let your housemates or your spouse or your kids or your parents, whoever it is, let them know this is when you're planning to do the exam. Maybe you want to do it in the morning, the afternoon. Maybe you want to do it at 6 a.m. I don't know, whatever. It's up to you. But you've set some time aside for that. Use the recommended browser. I mean, it won't particularly matter for us. Probably Google Chrome or Firefox is going to be, yeah, probably avoid using the other browser types. But you shouldn't really have any issues because it's going to be a Word document assignment. You'll download the Word document, you'll edit it, and you'll upload it again. Nonetheless, Chrome or Firefox are probably going to be more stable and more reliable than other browsers. You're not going to have to worry about losing internet connectivity. Again, you download it at the start, you upload it at the end. As long as you're able to get internet access for the start and end period, you'll be in a good position. However, I suppose since you're going to be referencing all of the lecture material, you're going to be able to reference all of the lecture material and all of the tutorial material from the course. If you do get a disconnection, you won't be able to download those documents live. So it probably wouldn't hurt you to download a folder and download all of the lecture documents and just keep a copy of it for your reference. I keep a copy of, obviously I'm moderating the course, so I keep a copy of all of this, but I have kept a copy of all of my lecture materials from all of my previous assignments. It doesn't take up a lot of file size. You know, I only just this year started paying for extra Google Drive storage, and until then I've been able to store everything in Google Drive because it always helps to be able to refer back to something. You can say, oh, I haven't heard of this in 8 years, but you know what? I remember studying about it in geomechanics in 2012, and so you can pull up your 2012 and you can find what it is that you were working on at the time. Likewise with this subject, you know, we've covered a lot of topics that are that I think are useful and relevant, but if you go into a structural engineering practice, you're not going to touch on any of this work. You're not really going to use it. And maybe you won't use it in that particular job for 5 or 6 years. Maybe you change jobs at some point, and then suddenly you remember, oh, hang on, there was something about turning lane warrants. Where do I find turning lane warrants again? And you can go back and refer to your notes and keep a copy. So for the exam, definitely it will help you to have a hard copy of documents. It'll be faster for you to load them. Set up 2 monitors if you can, so you can have your one screen, you can have all of your reference material, the other screen you can have your exam. That's going to be really helpful for you. If you don't have a second monitor, you can use a smart TV or something like that, so you can get one massive TV, do your exam right in the lounge room, assuming that you know the lounge room is not going to be a distraction for you. That can work pretty well. Definitely don't use a mobile phone to do your exam. Use a desktop or laptop, absolutely. And as I said, get a second monitor. Close all other programs or applications. Yeah, look, you probably could do that, but again, we're just going to be talking about word processing, so you're not really going to be likely to run into any crashes. Doug has asked, will we need to reference any material we get our answers from in the exam? So you won't need to exactly like bring material into the exam. You don't need to copy and paste anything to bring it in, but you will get some questions that the answers you can either, to answer the question, you will either need to view the Australian standards, or some of the slides, some of the lecture slides contain information that was from the standards. So it will be, yeah, you will actually need to be able to locate certain information either in the slides or in the Australian standards, only for a couple of questions. In general, if you can remember, so if I go into an example in here, let's go key lecture question 1, for instance. 2020, traffic and transport, key lecture questions. Okay, so lecture, oh, that's lecture, not the key lecture questions. Lecture questions, there it is. So question 1 here, what is the most important function of an effective transport system? You don't need to copy and paste from the lecture slides. If you remember what the most important function of the effective transport system is, you can just type out that answer and you can go on to the next question. But if we were to go on to something like, what is an example? No, that's probably a bad one. What is the goal speed limit for an M3P3 road? Well, you're not probably going to remember that matrix that shows the speed limits for M3, P3, and so on. You're going to need to look up the lecture slide that has the speed limit for those roads on it. So that will be how you'll find the answer to those questions. You'll need to look up that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Let me know if you're still unsure about what I mean there. Okay. Yeah, so you probably don't need to close all other programs, really. If you want, listen to some music. You know, I like to listen to classical music, or basically just music without lyrics. You know, whether it's classical or when I said reference, I meant put a citation in to show where the answer was from. No, you don't need to. No, you don't need to include citations. No, you can just type out an answer. Yeah, you don't need to say exactly where it came from. That's fine. Yeah, so you can listen to some music, and maybe that helps you. I had a friend who used to be able to read a book and listen to an audiobook at the same time. I would find that way too confusing. But if you want to take your test and listen to an audiobook, you know, if that works for you, that's your choice. What else we got? Timing, as I mentioned, we've actually, yeah, you've got a 48-hour window. The exam is 3 hours, but you've got 6 hours to do it in. What else do we have? Answering short and essay type questions. Yeah, so I've asked you to basically answer in dot points or just in short short sort of sections, and just answer directly in the document. None of that really matters. Yeah. If there's a problem, if you run into any sort of issues, look, just flick me an email. We can always work through something. I can arrange a supplementary test if things really really don't work out and you have some sort of horrible issues on the day. I really want to work with you to make sure that this is a painless process, and that includes dealing with any sort of troubleshooting that might come up. So yeah, look, there's nothing to panic about. We're going to be able to work through any problems. I'm very certain. And again, with the system of editing a Word document and then uploading answers, I'm really expecting that we're not going to have any issues with with crashes or things like that. Just make sure to save your Word document as you're going along. You can enable autosave in Word. It might not be a bad idea to enable autosave. Set it for a 10-minute autosave or something like that. Otherwise, if you've got a good Control S discipline and you're able to keep hitting that yourself, then you're going to keep yourself in the best position to not lose any work. All right, we've got another little bit of guidance here. Oh yeah, this is just the guidance, the notes that appear in the exam. I might actually just show you the notes that appear in the exam, but I need to open them on the other screen so that you won't actually see any exam answers. Let's go with, I'll open another Word document, and I can move it to the other screen, and then I can do this. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay, so here are the instructions to students that you'll see in the exam. Please attempt all questions. All reference material is permitted. It's completely open book assessment, Moodle online assessment. The exam is self-contained, so we don't get any other material to you. There are no, as I mentioned before, there's no formula sheets or anything provided. There's no tables or other documents. You'll need to know where to find that in the exam, in the lecture notes. So please attempt all questions. Note that questions are not of equal marks. Every question has the marks shown. The total marks for the exam is 100, and there are 40 questions. Worded answers can be written as dot points. You can enter answers in this Word document below the questions, and submit the completed exam to Moodle within 6 hours of downloading the exam. And that's it. That's all you've got to do. Do not remove any part of this paper from the exam room. That's going to be quite difficult to do because it's not a physical document. But this one's important. Do not send the exam to any other students. I'm aware that there's not really any way that I can police that. What I've tried to do is to make it very clear that obtaining a pass, or even obtaining a high distinction if you want to aim nice and high, is not going to be a difficult ask for this subject. And I think sometimes a lot of people can put in a great deal of effort to try to be a very sophisticated cheater, and really the amount of effort that you could put into that is going to be so much higher than the amount of effort that you would need to put in to be properly prepared for the exam. So that's I'm just asking. I'm trying to make it simple enough and straightforward enough that you can be confident in your own abilities to get through the exam, and to not have to break any of these rules. And as I said, I'll be completely honest, I really don't have any way to stop you doing this. I'm just asking very nicely, asking nicely to not be a dick, to use some crude language. Okay, what else have we got to talk about? So that's kind of all in terms of the preparation material, how the exam is going to function. I might just mention that if you're interested in not just preparing for the exam, but interested in really getting ready for the really understanding the material. So if you're going through the key questions, close that. If you're going through the key questions, say in topic 8, and you come up to a question, you think, oh, I don't quite understand what's written in the lecture notes. You can go to the YouTube section. I've put a link into each of the videos here, and these videos also have in the description, they have a number of timestamps, so you can skip forward to the parts that you're interested in. So I've done this for all of the videos. I haven't done a great job of it for the first video that we recorded, but all the other ones are pretty good. And I'm thinking I might go back and update that other one. So you can go back and you should be able to quickly find the relevant piece of information that you need. You can just sort of click on these timestamps and it will take you right to that particular part of the lecture. Okay, well, I've got too many tabs open. Let's get rid of some of these. Keep that one open. Okay. I think maybe what we might do is we'll go through a couple of questions. Please let me know if there's any questions that you want to focus on. I'll only go through a handful of these, and then if you've got some suggestions, I'll go on to those other questions as well. But if there are no more questions after that, then we'll end the YouTube portion, and I'll just sit on Discord and answer any questions as they come up. So let's go into topic 1. Lecture 1, which I think I already had open, did I? Yes, I did. Okay. There we go. So our key lecture questions 1, 2, 6, 7, 9, and 14 come from this document. So what's the most important function of an effective transport system? Does anyone remember what the answer to that is? A number of thoughts can come to mind. We might be thinking, well, speed is very important. And we might be thinking connectivity is very important. But there's one thing, the most important function, that stands above the others. Any recollection there? Let me know in the chat if you can think of it, and I'll bring it up in the actual lecture document. Safety, Doug has asked, and Doug is correct. Safety is the right answer there. And if you go to the document, we have that an effective transport system needs to allow safe movement most important. So the answer is right there, clearly in the slides. Also, there's something else I want you to note is that, and I've mentioned this before, all of the questions show up in order in the slides. So we go to our next key lecture question, which is question 2. What is a transport mode? Anyone, you can type out what a transport mode is. And I think it's even actually visible on this slide, so I'll scroll up so you can't see it. Let me know what you think a transport mode is. And we also need to get an example of a vehicular transport mode and an active transport mode. Get some examples of those. Doug has said cars, bikes, and walking. Yes, these are all modes of transport. So cars are vehicular transport, obviously. Bikes and walking, they form the definition of active transport. So active transport is anything where you're using your own power, the power of your body to move around. And vehicular transport is when the power comes from the vehicle. So vehicular transport, that can be planes, trains, buses, trucks, cars. You could even argue that Uber and taxi are different kinds of modes of transport. They include ships. They include, spacecraft, sort of technically. Maybe not spacecraft. But they are all different vehicular modes. And really, our active transport, we only sort of have cycling and walking. But you could say jogging, running. If you're on a scooter, pardon me, If you're on a scooter, rollerblades, not in Australia, but if you're in Austria or Germany, they use cross-country skiing sometimes as a means just to get around. It can be, somewhat effective. So these would all be active transport modes, but in general, walking and cycling are the two basic kinds there. And what else do we have? Question 6. Why is through traffic movement discouraged on a local street? If we go back to this document and we keep scrolling through until we see where's the bit on local streets. Where's the piece on local streets? Here we go, local streets, and you can see through traffic movement is discouraged to make the road quieter, safer, and calmer. So I hope you're starting to see the pattern here in that by giving you this document to prepare from, and by the way that all of these documents are ordered, you should find it really quite easy to locate answers that you can be confident in the exam. And yeah, we're not. I don't want to test your memory. Usually, that's all we get to do in exams is test memory. But as I said before, if you make a habit of saving all of your semester's lecture material, if you save all of this history and you're able to keep it through your professional career, then you don't need to remember exactly why through traffic movement is discouraged, as long as you remember that we discussed this back in 2020 when I had the best lecturer of my young life, the best class that semester. You can remember, I remember 2020, we studied this stuff, and it was in here somewhere, and you've got it saved, and you can navigate to it, and you can say, yep, here it was in the first lecture, that's where we had those answers. So you're always able to go back to refer to those things. As I said, I don't want to make it too hard, and I hope you see that I hope you're building confidence to see that it's going to be quite easy. Question 7, why do freeways not allow lane access functions? Why don't you give me some thoughts in the chat? Why do you think freeways do not allow lane access? What is it about access anyway that's so bad? Why might we not allow it? How many people do we have? So I can see my analytics tells me I've got 5 concurrent viewers. Oops. 5 concurrent viewers in here. But I don't actually know if that's a solid 5 because sometimes it's a bit weird. So I'm just wondering if maybe if we can go to Discord and play a bit of a game, get some kind of scoring going and some guesses and question answering. Doug has asked, is lane access pedestrian access? So no, lane access would be access to property. You might have a service lane or some kind of connection that enables people to get from the freeway itself onto private property. And so if you think about the function of a freeway, we want freeways, the free part, we've got actually, I might sort of break this down in a Word document. I'm not sure if we've talked about this before, but we'll sort of have a quick discussion of it. So we've got freeways, highways, and tollways. And I suppose they all fall under motorways. We've got walkways. What else do we have? We don't really have cycleways. We've got cycling paths. All right, let's just look at that. So let's break down what each of these means. So the freeways, the free part has 2 meanings. Free as in freedom of movement, and free as in no tolls. Highways, these are high standard. They are good quality. They are not completely free. but they are generally a much higher higher standard than other ways. Tollways, they're like freeways, but you have to pay for them. Motorways are anything that is used by motor vehicles, and walkways, places for pedestrians to walk. So I hope that you can sort of see the key word in each of these and have a bit of a definition about how they work. So with a freeway, we want freedom of movement. We want freedom of movement, and that means we don't want people to have to brake and slow down and stop because someone's house is on the side of the freeway and they put on their indicator to turn left and go into their driveway. No, everyone behind them would have to slow down, or we'd have to provide a turning lane just for that one property. So no, that's absolutely not. We don't want that whatsoever. Instead, what we do is we have freeways that feed into other arterial roads, and from those other arterial roads, they feed into local collector streets, and they feed into access routes. So let's go and look at Google Maps for a second, and we'll be able to see sort of how this function looks. Probably best to go back this way a bit so we can actually go back to the freeway part. So here we have the Western Freeway. You can see we've got some lanes here that run parallel to the freeway, and on these lanes we will have properties. They might be rural properties, but they'll be properties nonetheless. What we don't want is we don't want these properties to go directly from the freeway to their driveways. That's not going to be a good arrangement for us, because the freeway we want to operate at high speed. We want to operate at free flow conditions. Instead, we go from the freeway to an interchange. The interchange then connects to these other roads. And you can see here Carween Lane is discontinuous. It probably used to run continuous before the highway was built. But instead, if we were to get off at, I wonder where the next interchange is, we could get off an interchange here. If we're coming from Melbourne, drive into Moorabool, and then cross the road to get across to Carween Lane. It's a bit of a longer journey to travel. You might say, well, can't we just put an interchange right here? An interchange right here would be really good for the people that live on Carween Lane. But this interchange would cost tens of millions of dollars, and you would need to acquire the property from all the people that live here. So not really practical, but we can cross over here. Or even, I think actually we can go, might be easier to cross over, then pass over the highway, and then take this route, whatever, Bence's Lane, whatever that is, and then connect to Carween as well. So freeways, we want them to be free. We don't want to allow lane access functions because that's going to decrease the freedom of movement, and it's also going to be an issue for safety. But again, if you're running through this yourself and you want to find out some kind of answer from the slides, you can see freeway systems do not provide land access functions because all entrances and exits to the traffic stream must be controlled for safety. So all of the accesses onto and off of a freeway will use ramps. Beck said, "I wish it's a dirt road." I'm guessing you live out there in this sort of area. Is that right? This Bence's Lane, is that a dirt track? It looks to be pretty dirty. Okay. What else do we have to keep going through? If I go back to this one and... okay, so question 9 as well. Oops. Pop that up there. Yes, it is a dirt road. Okay, well, yeah, it's... I hope that it's graded frequently and nice and smooth for you. Question 9: what does the movement in place framework consider streets to be? I think actually that might be a typo. That might have been, should have been land, L-A-N-D, access functions, but I must have hit the wrong key. Anyway, what does the movement and place framework consider streets to be? I mean, this one is right there in the name. It's movement and place. So if you want to get a bit more of an idea, we can go into this section in the notes. But we see this discussion, movement and place has a road for and street is a movement corridor, but it's also a place which is a destination in its own right. So in the movement and place function, we need to consider both what category of movement needs to be served on that road and what category of place needs to be served. You know, if we're talking about Burke Street in the center of Melbourne, or if we're talking about Swanson Street or any of these places that have dining and retail, they've got you know, tram commuter locations. There are buskers and street performers and all sorts of things that make it a good place. Even just the street, the historic buildings on the street, people want to come and just look at them. So there's a very high place value, but there's also a very high movement value because we still have, you know, hundreds of thousands of pedestrian movements through these streets a day. We've got trams, we've got vehicles, but you'll see that the volume of people that can move on foot on those streets is much higher than the volume of cars that can move, even though we're trying to serve a bit of both of the movement and place. Yeah, well, and what else we got? Question 14. What's the goal speed limit for an M3 P3 road? As we mentioned before, if you needed to answer that question in the exam, you would need to be able to find this slide, which talks about the speed limits and how they vary from different place values and different movement values. So if we've got M3 P3, that puts us in this gray box in here. So the goal speed should be 60 kilometers an hour, according to the movement and place framework. Let me know if there are any questions there. Maybe we'll go on to the key lecture questions for topic 2 next. Doug says, what is an example of an M3 P3 road? Let's jump on Google Maps and we'll go over to Ballarat. We'll see if we can find one. So if we were to look at something like, and I always forget the actual name. I know this is the Midland Highway, but is it Armstrong? No, that's Armstrong. So this must be Midland Highway. What's the actual street name? Doveton. So Doveton Street, this has got quite a high place value, but it's also very high movement because the A300 Midland Highway is quite a high movement corridor. So I probably wouldn't say this. I might put that a bit higher in terms of the movement section. But Armstrong Street, so Armstrong Street sees a fair bit of traffic in Ballarat, as does Lydiard Street. They're both important. If you're getting across Ballarat, you need to move quite quickly through there. But they're quite high in place. They're definitely regional significance for place. You see how much parking we have here, how many shops there are. So this might even be a place 2, probably not a place 1 that stands out for the whole state, but it is a high value place for the city of Ballarat. So might be a bit too high there. And that also would show you, you know, here we've got a 40 kilometer an hour speed limit because we've got these 40 zones in red that the city of Ballarat have painted in. So both of these are in 40 zones. Trying to think of another section. We might find something if we went a bit further out, maybe on this side. Yeah, so I think maybe we could say Dawson Street. Yeah, Dawson Street also does see a fair bit of movement and has a reasonably high place value. Not as high a place value as Doveton. There's still lots of parks and there's some places to visit in terms of GCs, and there's the Why Not Massage and things down here. So there's a fair bit going on, but it's a little bit residential on one side as well. So you could argue that this is a movement 3, place 3. If we try and find an example in Melbourne, the centre of Melbourne itself would be quite hard to find it. We'd have to go out a little bit. Mount Alexander Road, maybe, that seems like it could do. So Mount Alexander Road's going to have probably even too high in terms of movement. Mount Alexander Road might be a movement 2. We've got lots of volume, and you can see the number of lanes, lots of volume on Mount Alexander Road. But the place is quite nice. So here we've got Queen's Park. Every now and again we have different retail stores or that sort of thing. I'm trying to think of somewhere where I've lived recently, or not recently, but lived in the past. Matthews Avenue, maybe. Yeah, so we've got the Tullamarine Freeway here, which obviously is place 5. You don't want to stop on the Tullamarine Freeway to look at all of the scenic and historic concrete walls on the side. But it's a high speed, high volume road, so that's movement 1, place 5. Matthews Avenue, on the other hand, this caters to a pretty consistent amount of traffic. You always see a lot of traffic on it, but there's only a couple of lanes. But all the way along Matthews Avenue, there are industrial and commercial buildings. So there's places where people work. Here's a training centre for Jetstar. There's Middendorp Electrical somewhere around here. Reese Plumbing. There you go. There's Middies. There's lots of different drivers of visits. And still a reasonably large traffic as well. If we went further up, there's a shopping centre around here, the Westfield Shopping Centre. And so again, in this sort of area, we're seeing the street itself might not necessarily have much place, but as soon as you turn a corner, you come into a area with much significantly higher place value. So you'd almost call this, I don't know about place 1, but place 2, there's lots of significance for anyone in the region. Anyone within half an hour of this area might come here to do their shopping or to go to the cinemas or anything like that. It wouldn't be as high a place function as, say, the streets in the centre of Melbourne near the Exhibition Centre. So if I go down to, where's down here? So there's the Exhibition Centre. This is a state significant place attractor. So all of the roads around here, all of the access roads, they consider the Exhibition Centre to be of massively high significance. Crown Casino also, you'd argue that gives you a state significant place setting, and that's partly because there's no other casinos in Victoria really. It always trips me out when I see the actual 3D. How do I do this? Shift click. So yeah, finding a movement 3, place 3, it's about looking for those areas that are significant in movement for your local area and significant in terms of parks or in terms of shops or in terms of restaurants, but for your local area again. They're not as big and as attractive as something that is state significant, but they're definitely going to be significant to anyone within 5 or 10 Ks of that area. I love that 3D stuff. I'm not 100% sure, but I think how they do it, how Google has done this, is they basically loosed a whole bunch of drones, and the drones fly around and take thousands of data points and thousands of pictures on the three-dimensional geometry of the city and all of what the images that appear in the part of the city, and then they use some sophisticated software to basically stitch all of the images together, stitch all of the surfaces together, and it's all automatic. They don't have to no one has to manually go in and code in or build all of these models. They all just do it with drones. Anyway, it's a bit off topic. Okay, so that was a bit of a discussion about the different movement and place categories for roads. I'll drag that back over there and pull this one back up. Close that off. All right, so our key lecture questions 2, we'll start going through some of these. Question 1, what does AADT stand for? I hope you guys can remember that. You know that it's a count about traffic. The T part stands for traffic. Hopefully you will recall it's annual average daily traffic. So this is taking the traffic in a year, the annual part, dividing it by 365 to get the average for a day. And it's a good measure of traffic for a number of reasons, particularly if we are working out predicted growth, if we're trying to calculate design pavements, if we're trying to figure out what sort of noise generations and things there are going to be on a road, particularly wear and tear. The annual average daily traffic is a very good measure. Question 3. Which organization provides values for travel time savings? So you'll recall from the assignment where we looked at the value of travel time lost, that every vehicle, from a passenger vehicle for private purposes up to a passenger vehicle for commercial purposes, a light truck, a heavy truck, a medium-sized truck, buses, all of these vehicles have a dollar value assigned to their travel time, and the organization that provides these is called ATAP. ATAP. That's the Australian Transport Assessment and Planning Organization. So ATAP is where you can find dollar values on travel time savings. ATAP also provide dollar values for fatality, serious injury, other type injury crashes. So you know if you're able to prevent a certain number of crashes with a particular intersection treatment, then you can put a dollar value on that as well. Question 4, what 2 time periods usually have the largest traffic volumes during a weekday? So we've got a morning peak and we've got an afternoon peak. And look, whether you said 7 through to 9 o'clock in the morning or 4 through to 5, I'm not so worried about you telling me what's the specific time range, because that does vary. It varies from road to road across the state, but as long as you know that there's a morning peak and there's an afternoon peak, because in the morning everyone's heading to work and in the afternoon everyone's coming home, and that alone, just thinking about that, that gives you a picture of something that is wrong with our views of transportation, and the fact that we have this burst of traffic movement. We're providing lane numbers and lane widths that are so numerous. We've got so many lanes and so much pavement that we're building to deal with 2 peaks a day, when we could really stagger the times that people are arriving at work, and get much better results. You might have noticed during the coronavirus lockdown that it's much easier to get around town, particularly at peak times, because the peaks are lessened. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to open it up, because this is my VicRoads thing and I might not be able to. Is it going to ask me for a password? Yeah, it is. Yeah, give me a sec. I'm going to get my work phone and get this code. I'll be back in just a tick. Okay, while we wait for my phone to turn on, I'll go on to the next question, then we'll come back to this one. What else do we have? Question 6. What can vehicle classifications tell us about pavement design and damage? So you might recall vehicle classifications change with the sort of size of different vehicles. So a passenger vehicle that just has 2 axles, front and rear, that's a class 1 vehicle. And it basically has zero pavement damage that it causes. You can go all the way up to class 12 vehicles, which are in the order of B triples that have dozens of axles. They're all heavy axles. They're carrying a significant amount of freight. So if we know that a particular road has many high class vehicles in that vehicle classification range, this is going to mean more pavement damage per vehicle. If we had 100% passenger vehicles, we can come up with a very light vehicle. If we've got mostly passenger vehicles and the occasional service vehicle, as you would have in local streets. So again, I'll go back to Ballarat, and let's see if I can find a cul-de-sac. I know there's some over here. Here we go. So we've got this Laminar Grove. So during construction of all of these properties in Laminar Grove, there would have been some heavy vehicles coming in to pour concrete, to carry in building trusses, roof tiles, all these kind of things, bricks. So those are some heavy vehicle movements once in this road's life. And for the rest of the life of this road in Laminar Grove, we're only going to have the occasional heavy vehicle twice a week to pick up the recycling and to pick up the rubbish, or then to pick up the rubbish and pick up the green waste. So the heavy vehicle percentage is really low in this road, really quite a low percentage of heavy vehicle movements. And so Laminar Grove doesn't have to be built to a very high standard. And the heavy vehicles that do come in, those service vehicles, the garbage trucks and that sort of thing, they're what's called a medium rigid vehicle. So rigid as in it doesn't have a joint in the middle. If I go to rigid heavy vehicle, no, these both articulate. This is rigid because the cab and the body, they are on they're one solid piece, whereas this truck, this is articulated. The cab can turn and the body will have a different angle to the cab, and this is a clearer example of an articulated vehicle where the front part is rigid, but then there's this join and there's an articulated part in the back. So from the in Laminar Grove, we'll never see anything larger than a sort of medium rigid vehicle, but out on the Western Highway, no, that's not the Western Highway, that's the Western Highway. Out on the Western Highway, we will see big heavies in the class, in the articulated setting in the high class vehicles. So something like this, where we've got the cab, we've got the first part of the body, we've got the second part of the body, long, large, heavy vehicles. It still only counts as one vehicle, but this is why it's important to note the class, because one vehicle of class 12 is very, very different from one vehicle of class 1. So what does this tell us about pavement design and damage? Well, it tells us that heavier classes generate more damage and need stronger pavement design. Okay, I'll go back to here. This was doing my login because we were talking about how the coronavirus would affect traffic in the peak periods, and how it would change across, across the busiest parts of the day. Now have a look at, this was the road deaths year to date for 2019. We had 134 by June. Last year, we had 134 deaths on the road, which is terrible. But we compare that to this year, we've got 97 so far. Now, at the start of the year, these two were keeping track with each other. But we've had so many fewer vehicles on the road because of the coronavirus, we've actually seen nearly a 30% reduction, approximately a 30% reduction in road fatalities. And that's year to date. So we've only really had fewer vehicles on the road for the past couple of months. I should mention as well, last year was a particularly bad year. It was sort of an unseasonably high year as well. So we do kind of expect, we were hoping 2020 was going to be lower anyway, but to see it be this much lower, we definitely have some of our our travel changes have had a big influence on this. All right, we'll go through a couple more of these questions. Question 9, how can future traffic volumes be estimated? So to do this, and I think I'll show again that there are answers for this in the slides. If I go on to lecture 2, that's key questions, lecture 2 slides. But basically, what we need to do is look at a growth factor. So if we know the rate at which a population is growing for a city, and we know what the current traffic volume is, we can apply that growth factor in a cumulative setting. So I might look at, let's go growth. So we can extrapolate past records. And if we don't have extrapolation for similar roads, then we can look at the proposed future land use. So if we know that there is going to be a new development coming up in the next 5 or 10 years, and we know how many residences are going to be on that development, then we can use the guide to traffic generating developments, where each residence is estimated to generate 10 vehicle movements per day, depending on if it's a unit or if it's an actual block. So we can use that to have a look at things. But again, extrapolation works quite well. And looking at estimates of future population in general, this can see trend rates. Usually we'll assume, say, a 3% growth rate is pretty common. But if we've got better, so if you don't have anything better, if you don't have anything, any other data to work with, assuming 3% is pretty safe. But if you've got something more accurate, then you can revise that number down to maybe a 2%, 2.5%, or you might even revise it up. So I was recently working on intersection upgrade for Glenelg Highway and Wiltshire Lane in Ballarat, and we were looking at designing the pavement out here. So we were initially assuming 4% increase because this area is massively changing. Might be clearer if I show it on near map, because then I can show a bit of history. So I'll just sort of talk a little bit about why we're doing this. But yeah, basically we'd initially assumed in the design 4% for the growth of the road, and we actually ended up bumping that up to more like 6%. Where's Ballarat? Up here, because the road was growing so rapidly. The area was growing so rapidly. So let's go back a few years. This is 2016. Even go back 2015. 2015, there is nothing. There is just green fields, and this is the corner. This is the corner that shows the limit of the urban sprawl in Ballarat. This is how far the development has come out towards Ballarat. Now let's go forward a few years. Delacombe Town Centre comes in. And I think Bupa was there, but Bupa was only just built at that time. If I go back another one, Bupa wasn't there at all. So this is an aged care home. So we skip forward a year. Now we've got the Delacombe Town Centre. It's established. We still don't have anything out here, but you'll see that it starts to come in. So now we get a new subdivision is going in here. Subdivision's going in up here. Let's skip forward another year or so. The subdivision's approaching completion. This one's still got a little way to go. Skip forward another couple of years. Bunnings has started construction. We now have people living here and we have more people there. And all of this area down here, this has been zoned industrial, but no one has started building industrial estates on it yet. Skip forward another couple of years. You can see that all of this area is going to be infill development. This is Delacombe Town Centre. This is going to be infill development. This is going to be infill development. And all of this is going to be industrial. And we skip forward to the present day, and you can see just how big this area is. So that's why in design, we just initially assumed 4%, which is quite high for the heavy growth. We've now said, well, let's assume for at least the next couple of years, we're going to take 6%, because we're expecting more industrial to grow down here. And that's just a function of how different the land use is in 2015 compared to now and compared to what's proposed for the future. Again, take a look at this. Look how hard this edge is on the urban sprawl. And then look how much that edge is now changing. And the edge on the urban sprawl is developing. You can see it as we look up here as well. Same story. Ballarat is absolutely booming in terms of the infill developments that are going in. So that's often these developments are known ahead of time, and so we can use those to estimate our traffic increases. What else we got? So let's go back to this. How long have we been going for? We've been going for just over an hour. I might finish this set of questions and then we'll take a break. So question 10, what is an origin destination study? So an origin destination study, this gives you trip data rather than just volume data. So rather than, if I just do one traffic count here on this road, I can find out how many vehicles travel east, how many travel west. That gives me a travel count. But if I set up an origin destination study all around Ballarat, and it might be better again if I go back to Nearmap, because Nearmap lets me draw polygons. So let's say I drew a study area all around Ballarat, and this has actually happened, by the way. We've done this. We've drawn a study area all around Ballarat. We've looked at all of the state roads, and at every state road into and out of the city, we've set up a counter that doesn't just count raw vehicles. It actually looks at the number, or it looks at the license plate number, or it picks up Bluetooth information, MAC addresses from Bluetooth information, that kind of thing, to figure out, at 11:59 on Thursday morning, a truck entered here, and then by 11 or 12:15, it exited here. So we know where it started, we know where it exited. And we can do that for all of these movements, and we can figure out where a vehicle's going through Ballarat, and it's something that road planners use to figure out where the best places are to put in a bypass or to put in some kind of road upgrade. So you might see that if you had, if you recognize that lots of vehicles were coming in from the south, and then the vehicles that came in from the south, they were leaving on the west, then you could put a bypass around Ballarat, or you could put a strengthened road around Ballarat that came on the west and around to the south, and that would work pretty well. But it would be a terrible idea to build that road if in reality all the vehicles are coming up from the south and then they were heading out to the east. So that's what an origin destination study does. It tells you about trip data. It doesn't just tell you about volume data. What else we got? Okay. Question 12. When are traffic impact assessment reports used? So you might remember from your assignment, traffic impact assessment reports. These are used when we have some kind of new development and we want to figure out how the traffic is going to function around that development. In other words, what is the traffic impact? We want to find out how much parking we need. We need to find out what sort of turning lanes we need. If I go back to the images in here, and let's clear that, go back to Delacombe Town Centre areas, or actually even these ones will be a good example. Okay, so you can see here, if I go back in time, this is just two lanes, just a lane in the east and a lane in the west. And then when we come through to this one being built, we've provided a left turn channelized lane and a right turn channelized lane. And I can probably even see, I think if I hit the play button, it actually shows me how it marches through time. A pretty big gap between this one, if I stop that, pretty big gap between before and after, so we can't see the production in progress, but you can see that we have built a channelized right turn and a channelized left turn. And those turning lane warrants, they have come from a traffic impact assessment report looking at the overall traffic that will be generated by this subdivision and requiring that this road upgrade is built. So that's one of the things that traffic impact assessment reports do. The other one relates to a development like this. We need to figure out how much parking we need, how much parking is going to be generated by these retail and convenience and food stores. Question 14, what is the 95th percentile speed? So it's a little bit like the characteristic strength in concrete. In the characteristic strength of concrete, we've got a strength down here, which, and that's probably a bad example, this one's better. We've got 5% of the concrete is going to be weaker than the characteristic strength, 95% will be stronger. So the 95th percentile speed, it's the same principle, but we're on the other side of the bell curve. This is the speed that only 5% of drivers will exceed. 95% drivers will drive at or slower than the 95th percentile speed. And question 15, when are in-stream travel time measurements used or useful? So these in-stream travel time measurements, these are very useful when we have some kind of congestion that we want to measure. So we can, if you've got a freeway and you know that you can increase the freeway speed from 80 to 100, it's very easy to do the math and figure out how much travel time that will save. But if you've got a series of traffic lights and the traffic is a high density, you can't mathematically work out what the travel time is. So an in-stream travel time measurement is where you get in a car and your passenger times how long it takes to get between point A and point B in that travel stream, in the traffic stream. So these are useful when, as I said, trying to work out what the delay is when you have congested conditions, traffic lights, or other stop-go type arrangements. Last question, and we'll take a break. 17, which documents usually note parking requirements for a development? That's also the Traffic Impact Assessment Report. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and I'll put some laundry on and maybe get another coffee, and let me know. I don't particularly want to go through all of these questions, so maybe what we'll do actually, rather than just taking a 10-minute break, is we'll take more like 15. So take 10 minutes to stand up, have a stretch, do all that sort of thing. And then spend 5 minutes just having a look at some of these questions and letting me know if there's any particular questions in here that you want me to go through. Because as I said before, I really believe that these questions, the answers to these questions are in the lecture slides very clearly and they are in order. So if there's any that you'd like me to explain more on because you're interested in them or because you don't quite understand the discussion in the lecture slides, let me know and we can go through them together. So as I said, we'll take 10 minutes as a break and then another 5 minutes after that to look at some questions, and then I'll go through and answer those questions for you. Let's see if I've got some questions. All right. So hopefully you were able to use that time to look forward at a few questions that we'll go through. And now I'll go through a couple of ones that we've got posted so far. Please just post any new ones in the YouTube channel. In the YouTube chat, we'll just keep going through them. If we find any that are unclear or any that you, even if it's not necessarily that you think it's going to be hard to answer on an exam, but you're just generally curious to know more about that topic, I'll tell you as best I can, what that question means to me and why I put it in there, and hopefully help you to understand it a bit better as well. So question 6 from topic 3 is the first request. Topic 3. Question 6. What is meant by stability of a traffic flow? Okay, so stability refers to, and I'm trying to think what the best image I can find for this is. Let's go to the Western Freeway. Freeway's down towards Melbourne anyway. Okay. Hopefully if I skip through a few of these, I'll be able to find one that's moderately congested. Yeah, this will do. Okay, so you can see that the traffic heading northbound here, there's really quite a wide distance between each vehicle. And the vehicles are not only traveling probably at their we can't tell because it's a still image, but they're probably traveling at the speed limit, so doing 100 kilometers an hour or maybe 80, depending on the time of day and that sort of thing. But they'll be traveling under free flow conditions and more importantly under stable conditions. What this means is that, say this red card here, I don't know, maybe he was hadn't had enough sugar on his Weet Bix that morning, blood sugar, pardon me, drops a bit and he hallucinates for a second. Maybe someone spilled something else into his Weet Bix and he sees a cat run across the road or something and slams the brakes on. Well, there's enough space between him and the vehicle behind that he can slam the brakes on for a second or two and then sort of recover speed, and it won't interrupt the flow here. That's what we mean by flow stability. But if you take a look at the traffic in the other side, the vehicles here are so close together, they're probably not traveling very slowly. This isn't what I'd call a traffic jam. They might be doing 60 or 70 k's an hour, but they will probably be fluctuating between 60 k's, 40 k's. They might creep down to 30, then they'll be back up to 70 or 80. And if we actually look up and down along the path, you'll see some areas with low density here. This place, we've got some low density in vehicles. Vehicles are well spread, and here they're probably doing 80 k's an hour. And then we go up to this area, and we've got a congested section. So someone has braked a bit too hard here, and the shock wave has gone back up through traffic, and we've got a significant amount of congestion. And then as we keep going further back, we will eventually find another area, like we sort of see here, where the congestion is lower. And then here again it becomes higher. Here's a pocket of very high density. And so we keep finding this because the flow is unstable. Actually, another really good thing to look at would be to look at laminar and turbulent flow. Let's see if we can... I don't know if I'll find a good example of this. No, we want to actually find... laminar and turbulent transition, and if I go to search for a GIF, I might be able to find some good examples of this. Hopefully this GIF will load. Might try and find another one while I'm waiting. Transition. Nah. Not finding a moving GIF. Really hoping that I would. Oh, there we go. So see how this water is, this is laminar, in that you can see the flow streamlines are staying steady, and then periodically you see that there's this jolt, there's this sort of shock wave that comes through the water, and that's the turbulent flow. So it's interesting because similar properties occur in water as occur in vehicles, where you can have water flowing in a laminar state. So this is flowing at good velocity, it's very comfortable, but it can still be high enough, the flow rate can be high enough that it is unstable and it will transition between a turbulent and a laminar condition. And the same is true with traffic. You can see here the flow is transitioning at various points between a laminar free flow and a turbulent dense flow. And it's as simple as someone braking or doing the wrong thing, the flow stability breaks down, and it's the same as the flow regime in laminar or turbulent water. When that flow breaks down, we see bunching up of the traffic. So that's what we mean by by stability of a traffic flow. It's basically a function of having either a low enough speed or enough space between vehicles that when one driver has to correct, the follow-up corrections behind that driver don't lead to a flow breakdown. Please let me know if you've got any other questions about that. Also, watching this YouTube video, if I've got, is the link? Oh, The links don't work, unfortunately. I did make links in these, hyperlinks in these documents, but maybe it's the print to PDF I've been using that's breaking them. In any case, you can search for the CGP Grey shockwaves in traffic video, and that helps to visualize what we were just looking at as well. Okay, so Lachlan has also asked, can we go through topic 3, question 6? No, that's what we just did. Question 6, topic 3. Oh, that's both the same. Lachlan and Doug have asked for the same question. Okay. So hopefully that one's well answered. Please let me know if you've got some others. I'll keep an eye on this YouTube live stream. Oops, I hope I didn't just kill the stream. No, good. I think I didn't just kill the stream. Hopefully that didn't stuff anything up. I accidentally hit refresh on the page. But yeah, let me know if you've got any other questions in here, and yeah, I'll answer them as soon as they pop in. Can we ask questions about the last assignment? Yes, you certainly can. Let me know, Joel, Jessica, let me know what you'd like. If you export in Word rather than print to PDF, the links will still be there. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate you saying that. I'll have to try that next time. Yeah, I'll give that a go. So Joel, Jessica, what are your questions about the assignment? Okay, so Joel and Jessica, if you've got some questions about the assignment, just post them in the chat. For Doug, you've said not on the exam list, but topic 9, question 9, you'd like to know some more about. So that's cool. Let's go into that. 9.9. If pre-time signals do not detect traffic, what may be meant by semi or fully actuated signals? So semi-actuated signals, if I go to another good example is in Ballarat, near the Lake Garden. I think is it Botanica Estate? I can't remember what the estate is called. Okay, so there's a set of signals here, and this is not a timed set of signals. This is an actuated set, but it is not fully actuated because it does not care if there are vehicles waiting to go through. The assumption for this particular set of traffic signals here is that the through vehicles should always be on. Whenever we get a chance, we're going to turn the vehicles on, or turn the green light on for the through vehicles. So we actually only have 3 detector loops here. We've got one here for the right turn, one here for the left turn, and one here for the right turn. And so if vehicles are detected here, then the signal will transition, the phase will change, and it will let vehicles make a turn in. It will keep this one green, and it will just let the right turning vehicles move in. If vehicles are detected just in the left, then it will again change the traffic stream so that vehicles can make the left turn. This one, the right turn, will still stay open. And only if the right turn is triggered will it stop vehicles traveling in both directions to allow that right turn to get out. So this is a semi-actuated area because there's only a detector loop here. There's a detector loop here. And there's a detector loop here. So that's in deference to a fully actuated signal, like the ones we have here. So these signals, they have detector loops all through here. There are detector loops all through here. Oops. There are detector loops all through here. And there are detector loops all through here. The slip lanes don't need detector loops. And there is even a detector loop set here. The detector loops here, this one detects when vehicles are queued up because the rail boom has come down, and the vehicles have queued up all the way back to here, and they've blocked the intersection. So when these ones are triggered, and they're triggered solidly because there's vehicles parked there, it does not let right turn vehicles or through vehicles come through on those sides. So this one is fully actuated, and this one is only partially actuated. And then there are some that would be just timed. They don't look at any kind of vehicle activation whatsoever. They just change in a set time period. And I'm not sure if there are any of those in Ballarat. There might be some up along Sturt Street. I really don't know. I think they're all actuated. I can't find off the top of my head anywhere that is going to be just a purely timed arrangement. Okay, so Joel has asked, for determining turning lane warrants, we've found several warrants for different turns. Is that heading down the right track? And it can just choose the one that looks right for the major and minor road. Yeah, so if I go to the assignment sheet, which is, let's close that and minimize this, and this is what we want. So in this assignment, you are asked to determine the turning lane warrants for the major and minor roads. So you have multiple locations on the roads that you need to work with, and each one of those locations has multiple accesses and has different sort of movements in and out. So we'll go through a bit of an example, and I'll sort of show you what we're thinking about. And the reason I'm opening AutoCAD is because it's very helpful in this assignment to draw a diagram. So I haven't explicitly told you that, but it's whenever you've got a sort of big, long, wordy description, it's very helpful to have a diagram to both make sure that you're understanding everything correctly and visualizing everything correctly. And when you put it in the report, it makes it easier for whoever's reading the report to actually find their way through. So let's get this open. So we've got a case of we've got a new retail shopping centre on the southwest corner of Creswick Road and Norman Street. So let's go in here and grab Norman Street. I was thinking about this particular property here. Come on, green shot, wake up. There we go. So we've got Norman Street, Creswick Road there. Scale doesn't really matter. So we're basically looking at, pardon me, we're looking at developing the land in here. All right, so that's our parcel. These are our roads. Okay. What else do I need? If I go back to here, so as part of the application, a TAR needs to be made. Sorry, just make sure I've actually got the lecture one so I can see that. A TAR needs to be prepared. The shopping centre will have multiple accesses to both minor and major roads. Each road will have one access that caters for all movements in and out, and one access that is left in, left out only. So we don't know which is which, and it doesn't really matter. Let's say that we're going to have one up here that is in and out. And we will have one close to the lights that is in only, and we'll basically have a repeat of that on the other arrangement, except I'm going to do it like this. This one needs to be in only, not out only. And this one needs to be a bit closer. Okay. And I'll put these ones a bit closer together so that's clearer. Okay, so we've got our in-only arrangement, we've got our in-out only arrangements, and we've got them on both sides. So this diagram already, it starts to help us visualize what's happening. What else do we need to say? One access that caters for all movements, one access that is left in, left out only. Oh, sorry, left in, left out. So let's do mtext instead. Lie low is what we use for left in, left out. I don't know how big this text is going to need to be. No, that's way too big. Let's grab that. Call it 0.2 again, or 0.4. Okay, so that's a left in, left out. The other one's left in, left out. The other ones are full sections. And we also have on-site parking facilities, which we'll get to in a second. So when we get to this part about determine the traffic generation to/from the site, we need to figure out for each one of these areas how many movements are going out, how many movements are going out left, how many movements are going out right, how many movements are coming in left, how many movements are coming in right. And all of this information is broken down in the assignment sheet here. I won't actually download that because I've got it in here instead. Assignment 4. And I'll put my student number in. So we get some volumes of what the movements are in each direction. I'm going to put this over here. Keep AutoCAD going. So now we can start to see what the movements are like and start to zero in on our design movements. I'll go back to reading the assignment sheet, so make sure that I don't steer you wrong. We need to figure out. We've got a number of different days of the week where we could have our peak travel being generated. And we need to know which one of these is critical to use. What do you think might be a good way to figure out what values to use here when we are determining our turning lane movements? What's one way that we might break up all of this data and find the critical things that we need to know about? We could try to be a bit fancy and look at a probability thing. Joel and Jessica has said traffic generation. We do need to work out the traffic generation from the site itself, so we're going to need to use the guide to traffic generating developments to figure out what the volumes are generated by the development. But just in terms of these values here, one conservative thing to do, a safe thing to do, would be basically just to take the maximum of any of these. So if I want to work out, what's the, find the peak day exactly. We can find out what the maximum is for any of these movements. The Saturday is looking like a pretty good contender. In fact, it is. It's the highest contender for all peak movements. So we can just use the Saturday here. So we might then go into grabbing these values. I'm going to use a better arrow than that. And so we've got Creswick Road is this one. So we've got northbound on Creswick Road, we have 862 vehicles. Then we've got southbound on Creswick Road, 867. And we have westbound, we've got 434 on Norman Street. And eastbound, we have 431. I'm also going to change the color of this layer because it's a bit too hard to see. It's a bit easier to see. Okay. So we now also need to find our traffic generation inside the estate. So what I might do is I'm not actually going to open up the guide to traffic generation document. Part of this assignment, part of the value that I see in this assignment is actually not holding your hand too much with regards to the interpretation of that standard. So by giving you a standard, pointing you very vaguely at the standard and saying, okay, you're going to need to read and interpret and figure out how this standard applies to here. I'm hoping to help you to develop your engineering judgment. So I don't want to show you step by step how to do that. I'm instead going to pop this over to the other screen. Actually, no, I'm going to open up the answers document, and I'm going to take it over to the other screen and put some values in. So I can get some answers for this, and I'm going to put into my AutoCAD model my traffic generation. Put that in a different layer. Okay, so we've got percentages. I suppose it doesn't really. No, I don't want to show you that. What I'll do instead is I'll grab that like this. I'll open an image editor, and then I'll hide these, and then I'll put this in here. Okay, so I need to hide that one as well. Okay, so we can see the percentages that we've got here, and we need to work out what our totals are. So I've done some math on the other screen built into the spreadsheet, so I can work out that my my left in left out movement for Creswick Road, or my left out movement for Creswick Road, is going to be 119 vehicles. So let's do left out like this. And that's 119. And then I can work out my left in demand is for Creswick Road is also 119 vehicles. And I have I've got movements for all different directions. So my Creswick Road left out all movements section is 83 vehicles wanting to go out this way. I've got the right out here is 119. So anyway, I can put all of these in. I can show how many want to come in and out and from each direction. I can work all that stuff out. But basically what I now get down to is I've got volumes on the major road, I've got volumes on the minor road, and I can start to work out what the movements are going to need to be. And I can compare that to the turning lane warrants. Oh, so Joel and Jessica have said, yes, I'm good from here. I hope you understand. All right, for the benefit of anyone else still watching along and wondering, the next thing that we would do is go to the turning lane warrants discussion, which I think is in lecture 4 or 5, traffic flow theory, gap queuing analysis. Yeah, I think it's in here actually. I might be mistaken, but I'll have a quick look. Turning lane warrants, section 3.6 in Ostroad's guide, but we've also got them here. So I've started to draw up this diagram in AutoCAD. You can see the ins, the outs. We need to look at this diagram to figure out how we get to our T1 and T2 volumes, what the QM value is, what the critical value is, and then you can read the appropriate values from these charts, bearing in mind these are 3 different charts for 3 different speed limits. So the speed limits are at the bottom. Then you can find out where you sit in this chart. Do you sit over here? Do you sit down here? Do you sit all the way over there? And that will be giving you your turning lane warrant. So you'll need to do that, yes, several times. You'll have to do it once for the left here, once for the left and right here, once for the left here, and once for the left and right there. So there's a fair bit in it, but I want to get you to have some exposure to using these documents because they're really quite useful, quite powerful documents that explain. They can tell you very quickly if you're working on behalf of a developer or behalf of private or public or whatever. They can tell you basically how much it's going to cost to develop a piece of land by letting you work out the pavement area, which is the biggest portion of the cost. So that gives you a very quick idea. Okay, I hope that explains. Any other questions? Please let me know if you've got any other questions relating to the assignment, relating to, or maybe one thing we can do actually is go through the documents that the City of Ballarat gave us for the road safety audit. That might be something a bit interesting. So we had our, well, that was an example road safety audit. Now we had our proposed roundabout. I can't remember which one of these was the clearest. Yeah, this is reasonably clear. So this was the proposed roundabout from the road safety audit assignment. Terrible design with lots of conflicting line marking and lots of conflicting signage and signs pointing the wrong way and all sorts of issues, bad visibility, all that. And here is what the City of Ballarat actually built. Where is it? Or actually proposing to build. So this is the existing conditions. They're only knocking down one tree. And they're building a much more straightforward, simple roundabout. You'll notice that each approach has a splitter island. The roundabout has the curb and channel all the way around. We don't have cycle facilities through the roundabout, but that's not necessarily a problem because cyclists, when there isn't enough room, cyclists can claim the lane. So you don't have enough room to provide fully for cyclists. You encourage cyclists to claim the lane instead. The regular round shape is a much better arrangement, and you can see from each section of the roundabout we have clear visibility to each other portion of the roundabout. The center is shown to be having some sort of grass, but that grass can be maintained in height so that it is not going to be problematic for visibility across there as well. And tellingly, we don't have paths, pedestrian paths, that pop into and out of these heavily treed areas. That would make things much more confusing. So yeah, we can see here there's a bit of a contour surface plan as well, which was detail we didn't have in the mock assignment. But I hope that you can sort of see the difference between these two and see this as a much better design. Okay, yeah, let me know in the chat if you've got any other questions. I'm happy to answer any questions relating to the to the assignments, to the exam, or just general questions. If there's more, if there was something that you thought while we were going through the subject this semester, and you thought, gee, that was really interesting. I'd never heard about that before, and you want to know more about it, let me know. Type something out in the chat. I'm more than happy to spend some time going over any of that material that you found was particularly interesting for you. Jeremy said he thinks everything is clear. That's really good to hear. Look, what I'll do is I'll probably end the live stream here. I don't think we've got much more content to go through, but I'll keep an eye on the Discord. So if you've got any other questions, you can pop them through there. You can send them to send me an email as well if you any time between now and the exam. It might take me a couple of days to get onto because I've still had issues with not being able to get my staff account to automatically forward to my Gmail, but I try to remember to check my staff account every day or every couple of days. So you know, like I said, if you've got questions, let me know. Post them in Discord. Send me an email. Look, I really enjoyed teaching this class. I think it's been a great opportunity to sort of pass on you know, some of the knowledge I've been fortunate enough to pick up over the last few years working for the State Road Authority. I hope you found it very informative, and I hope you now feel like you are you're ready to apply for and to understand the goings on at any kind of traffic and transport based employment, whether that's local council, State Road Authority, Public Transport Victoria, whether you're working for a private company producing traffic impact assessment reports or doing those sort of things. I hope that you really value that stuff and come back to it in future if you've got anything that you need to recall. So all right, this is us signing off. Best of luck with all of your exams, including this exam, I hope that your studies and your future career paths all do you really well. Thanks for watching, everybody.